in 2 Kings 18:3, 2 Chronicles 2:2, both say, he did what was right in the sight of the Lord. He did what was right in the sight of the Lord in accordance with everything that his father David had done. That's how we introduced to him right there. He did good. I like to dwell on good better than bad. You know, he had done a lot of things. And even to an extent, they consider him, and I even want to somewhat, even after really studying about him, and it's hard for me to almost place him in the number 3 spot. It's king. They say David, Solomon, and then Hezekiah. Weighing his good works and maybe his omissions, I think he would be. He just has to be above Solomon almost in my mind. You know, I can't necessarily put him above David, but because one, we don't know everybody's heart, just like we know that the Bible says David was a man after God's own heart. However, we know of all of his faults too. And David and Hezekiah was, I would say, a man after God's own heart, would you not say? And his faults seem a lot less that we know about. But again, God knows the heart. We don't. But I dare say that I would rank Hezekiah very high on the list. Let's say that of all the kings that children of Israel had. And we read about the very first thing. Now, he had probably been co-regent with his father a few years, which was typical with his father Ahaz before he took over as king. But immediately, he began to destroy all the idols. That's his first thing. Once he gets, as we say, in office, he crushed everything. The bronze serpent, it makes mention in 2 Kings how he destroyed the bronze serpent. Now, what y'all remember where that bronze serpent came from? The wilderness. Because they got all upset with the way Moses was running the show. So we're going to do what they do, moan, groan. And so snakes start biting them. So if you go look at this, told Moses to make a bronze snake, right? And if you go and pray for it, you're healed, or you don't ever get bit. Now, what have they been doing with this thing for 600 years? Exactly. They were worshiping that thing. For 600 years, from the time Moses to this right here, they've been worshiping this thing. Even though it didn't mean anything to them, because they had been worshiping it. And here it's destroyed. But how has this thing made it 650 years through all the dragging around in the wilderness they did? Who has been in charge of keeping up with the bronze snake? You know, I mean, it had to be a deacon's work. It had to be a deacon's work. But you know, they even named it, and because of that, you know, it was destroyed. They worshiped it, offered incense to it, and everything else. That's one thing he did. Know of any other particular thing that he did? They had done such a good job of, I guess, observing all the laws and everything, to the point to where they was not even worshiping at the temple when he takes over. They've gone so far away, and he restores temple worship, and he commands them to bring, and all of this comes about through studying all 3 of the stories: Kings, Chronicles, Isaiah. All right, so he goes in, and he wants to start having temple worship. They can't do it. They can't even observe the feast on time. Why?
They don't have
The priest ain't ready. They're so unclean that they can't even do their thing. They can't even be the priest. They're not even able to go into the temple and offer sacrifices because they're so unclean. So what do you have to do to be ceremonial clean? Well, one, you have to take a bath. You got to wash. You got to shave all the hair. Shave all your hair. And you got to clean your have clean clothes. And you got to be ceremonial clean. And there was no priest that met that. So they had to delay the feast till they could get all the priests cleaned up. And then they could offer their sacrifices. All right. So he went through that whole stage. And we have many lessons where he did so many things, but yet it was still a remnant that didn't follow. Just like David mentioned, there was still some that was worshiping the serpent. All of this, the high places, they would, a bump in the road, they put up an Asherah pole, and they would worship, burn offerings there. So he went about just trying to destroy all of those places, restore temple worship, get the people to come to the temple. Then he even went as far as to send guys to the northern kingdom, which had fallen about 25 years prior to his reign, had fallen already to the Assyrians. And most of them had been taken slaves back to Assyria, which Assyria is what countries today? Syria, Iran, Iraq, and Turkey. I think that's it. That's the countries there that made up the Assyrian capital. All right, so the northern kingdom has been overtaken by Sargon the First, right? And now then, he takes the northern kingdom. So along comes Sennacherib, who follows him as king of the Assyrians. All right. In the meantime, before our friend Hezekiah now has even went to the remnant of the northern kingdom and invited them to come down and worship with us, come to the temple, observe. And you know, after they had even been captive, conquered by the Assyrians, many of them taken off as slaves, you know, most of them rejected it. You know, you've been overtaken, but yet you still are rejecting the God of your people. And they rejected coming down to even worship with them. So we have now the setting somewhat of where we start our lesson. We got a point to where Hezekiah is getting pressure from Sennacherib. And as the lesson hits us today, we don't see what happened a few days prior. Okay, Sennacherib is just taken over. Sargon has taken the northern kingdom. So Sennacherib wants to take the southern kingdom. So he starts by going in, invading, taking several of the other countries around him. Then he starts taking a few of the cities in Judah. All right, first, what does Hezekiah do? Which is not in this lesson. But what did he do? He sold all the goodies to appease Sennacherib. He said, look, let's make a deal. Sennacherib tells him how many talents of gold he wants and silver. And Hezekiah takes the gold off of the doors of the temple, which he had put on there when he was restoring the temple to clean it up for the priest. He had put gold on the lamp, the doorpost, and gold on the doors, had utensils. He give all of that to a Sennacherib to keep peace, more or less. So what does Sennacherib do? He honors that for about 15 minutes till the check clears, as you would say. So he starts pushing a little bit more, so he does what everybody does, like our lesson says. He sends somebody else to start blaspheming the Lord, really. That's what he's doing in our lesson, isn't he? He's blaspheming the Lord. And he's not only giving this message to Hezekiah, but he's got his guys going around more or less broadcasting it through the whole area on their way, even to the point where he's got guys who speak all the different languages, Aramaic, all of that. So he's able to just tell them. So what's he doing? Obviously, he's undermining Hezekiah, right? I mean, that's the real purpose of this whole deal, is to set Hezekiah down one notch. Well, Hezekiah, in the meantime, he's thought about it, and he's prepared, but he knows he's way overpowered. So what does he do? Well, he gets them ready. He gets them ready to fight. And then he does something of just, to me, it's probably remarkable because I'm in the construction business. But in case they were to try to cut off the water supply to the city of Jerusalem, they commenced digging a tunnel through bedrock now. And they didn't have my tractors with hammers on them. These are hand tools. This tunnel is 1,700 and something feet long through bedrock. The guys started on each end. And they chiseled a tunnel through that whole mountain, 1,700 feet by hand, so water could be diverted through the pool of Siloam. And they found it again, haven't they? Did y'all see it when y'all were there? Y'all walked it? Yeah, we did. What year was it when they uncovered it again? 1850s, 60s, something like that? When they discovered it again, or it had been covered over maybe or something. And they found inscriptions on the walls that were taken off, I think, and sent to a museum in Turkey, maybe, I read about. And it's the inscriptions which leads them, it gives them the ideas that these guys started on both sides and how they managed to, not knowing, we ain't got no instruments, levels, how they would manage to connect the thing where the grades would work to where the water would flow through there.
They didn't have civil engineers like
Gray wasn't there, and they didn't have a contractor there like me. So I don't know. There's one or two things that, there's nobody knows how they did it. But one guy said that they possibly did it by somebody on the ground, above ground, tapping on the ground all the time. But I don't know that would tell me how deep to dig my hole. I might know where you are. I might could locate you as far as distance into the tunnel. But now, did that sound come from 7 foot 2 inches down or 6 foot 9? You wouldn't be able to do that. But so this didn't something about to me has to be a miraculous thing. Well, that's what I'm saying. This has to be a miraculous thing. This did not happen by sheer luck. Everywhere.
To hear this guy tell it, he shouldn't have been doing it.
Right. He didn't even need to be doing it. that this guy wants us to think he had no faith is the reason he was scared to death. So he's done all he can do. Hezekiah's taken all the tools I got at my disposal here. So what can I do now? In the book probably indicates like, well, as a last resort, I'm going to pray. That's the way almost the book makes it sound. No. He prays, he prays so much that he's actually weeping. And then you read I was trying to think of the verses where he cries out, and then he turns to Isaiah, and Isaiah has his prayer. His prayer is listed. The whole prayer is listed in Isaiah. What he was praying about, that God would help him, that God would deliver him, and God would not let him take over the city. And then Isaiah comes to him and says, God has heard your prayers. And it's interesting, so many times we hear where God directly talks to him, but here, God don't do much talking to Hezekiah. He always puts the words in Isaiah's mind and mouth, and Isaiah goes and tells Hezekiah. Well, Isaiah comes and says, hey, the Lord has heard you. It's going to be taken care of. And in our lesson today, we have this many, about 2 little verses. It said, and he wiped them out, killed every man of valor and all of that. And it ends. That's it. No. That ain't the way it was. He killed God during the night, eliminated 185,000 men of valor. The others woke up the next morning and found 185,000 of their buddies dead, and they had slept through it. You think they thought, well, they must all come in here and killed them all night, last night and didn't wake none of us up. No. That didn't happen like that either. Like Bill said, God's hand is in every bit of this. Every bit of this. Nope, that's the main. When they woke up, they was all gone to the house. I mean, they took the shortcut home. All of them took the shortcut home. They didn't want to see what happened the next night. Maybe that was it. And Sennacherib, he has got the message then too. He don't want no more part of this either. So he goes back home and he prays to his God. I'm trying to think of the name of it. Himrock, something like that. I think that's what it was. But his God didn't hear nothing. Didn't hear a word. And what happens to him? Our lesson test. Yeah. Oh, yeah. The one story, I think Isaiah gives their names. They went in, 2 of his sons, and killed him in the temple. Riley's worshiping this God who's supposed to deliver him, he thinks. And it says, and they took him with a sword. And they ran off, and their younger brother became king. Now that's how Sennacherib lived. Now these Assyrians that we're talking about, where are they from? Do you know that in our country, United States, we have about 600,000 or 700,000 Assyrians living in this country? Isn't that amazing? Most of them are in Michigan, California, and one other state. But there's 3 states, and that's primarily where they are. And but there's 600,000, and they're dispersed among the whole world. Not only, they were destroyed by who? The Assyrians. We have that in the last quarter's lessons. Nebuchadnezzar and Babylon. They wiped him out. About 50 years, 60 years after Hezekiah passes away is when the Assyrians are taken out. And but so all of this lesson now, we've gotten up to the point now to where now that he's defeated all of these enemies, he's been victorious over the Assyrians, and God blesses him. God blesses him tremendously. He's wealthy. The people are doing good. There's peace. I mean, it's just fantastic. It's some of the best times that he's at peace. Then what happens? Satan, the old devil, throws a punch at him, doesn't he? He gets sick. And he prays, and Isaiah comes to him and says, hey, buddy, get all your paperwork in order. You're about to die. And, you know, Hezekiah don't really accept that with open arms at all. You know, he says, hey, man, I need some more time. Can you give me a few more years? And he prays to God. Isaiah comes back to him and says, hey, God's going to give you 15 more years. But no, Hezekiah, and this is another thing it's not in this story here, but this is part of the story that's not in this lesson, but it's part of this whole thing. All right, so he gets sick. But God promised him 15 more years. So what do they do? I know that y'all are a lot into herbs and old-time cures, but putting a cake of figs on something and it helped the inflammation go away, I don't know if that's a medical practice or not. I have never heard of it. I've heard of spitting tobacco on a bee sting and, you know, and things like that, you know, take the poison out, but I've never, I know it works. My granddaddy spit on my hand. I know it works. My granddaddy, he had a dip of snuff. Yeah, my granddad had a dip of snuff all the time. We was walking one day, and I remember Yellow Jacket bit me, and he grabbed my hand, spit on it. I took care of it. Yeah, I took care of it. I mean, you know. But, so a cake of figs cured his inflammation wherever it was. So he gets better, and he's happy. But I don't know if the Lord's going to keep that promise or not. I'm still got this inflammation in here. How about giving me a sign? And then something happens. God says, okay. And our lesson says, he got a sign. Well, we know what the sign was, don't we? He says, okay, what do you want me to do? You want me to make the shadow go forwards or backwards on Ahaz's stairway? So how Hezekiah gets to reason? Well, it naturally would go down. So make it go backwards 10 steps. Okay. So the shadow goes backward 10 steps. Now then, how did that happen? What did God do to make it go backwards 10 steps? Did he just make it happen right there on that one set of steps? Did he make it a general thing where the sun went backwards a little while? Or was it just that one spot? We know he could do any of them. We know. You know, and it's really interesting to hear how some of them guys who try to explain how that happened, you know, all kinds of fractured fairy tales, as I'd like to say. You know, there's no facts, basis behind any of it. But they was talking about the rotation of the sun. It could have been a slight eclipse at that time. It could have caused this, you know. I mean, you would have to strain harder to believe that than you would have to just believe that God's hand was involved. All right, so now we have 10 more years added. He's gotten over his illness, 15 more years added, and he's over his illness. But, you know, Satan still got to get a jab in. Still got to try to get him. So he gets a get well card from the Babylonians. And they sent a gift with it. So they don't tell us what the gift is, but they sent a gift with their get well card. And some guys even brought it to him, hand delivered it. So he gets the gift, and he's just proud. He's been blessed. His barns are full, gold is everywhere, money is everywhere. And when they deliver him the letters, he takes the king of Babylon's entourage and he shows them all of his stuff. Shows them all the good stuff he's got. Every bit of it. Shows them it all. Well, that didn't go too good there, did it? So Isaiah comes and visits him again. You know, that's a guy he had to love right there, Isaiah. But yet at the same time, he had dread seeing him because he was probably going to get corrected. You know, he knew sometimes he brought him really good news, but sometimes he just, like Della Wing, he told it like it was, you know, and he did. He said, boy, you've done wrong. And all that stuff you showed them, it's going to be taken away. And it's going to, guess where it's going? It's going to Babylon. Because the Babylonians are going to take it over. And they did. About 70, 75 years after Hezekiah dies is when Nebuchadnezzar and his group overthrows the southern kingdom. You know, we have a lots of things like that sign. And you know, you remember anywhere else in the Bible that we studied about where the sun did funky things? Joshua needed a little more time to beat the Amorites, I believe it was. Amorites, I think. I didn't say this, but I think it was the Amorites. He needed a little more time because we got them on the run. God, now, if you turn the lights off, we can't see them. So can you make the day just be a little longer? And I remember the story, it goes, it was a whole day. It wasn't a matter of an hour extension. A whole day was given so that Joshua could defeat them. So God stopped the sun or did something then. So we have God's ability to control time, sun, everything. Lots of people think that, and this is where I think Jim and I agree probably a lot. A lot of us have the opinion, I believe that, or several have, that God's got all of this going. He got the world spinning, and they got it sitting on this axis, and everything's turning and everything. So he's just sitting back, letting it all go. No. He is in control of everything. Just like the Bible says, he puts rulers in their places, he's in control. Just like he can control the sun, he controlled that. This God that did these things in this Old Testament we're studying about is the same God that we have today. He is unchanged. Now, does he act the same? No. But he acts in different ways, in different methods. There's not prophets. There's not kings. There's not apostles or apostles. There's not people speaking in tongues, healing. But he speaks through the word. You had something you want to say? Put it on me. Yeah, slinging a sword. Yeah, like David just said, it was one thing for the sun to be up. The other is you to be able to be doing something for 24 hours, fighting, and not just standing around seeing if you can endure 24 hours daylight. No, they were physically fighting. So God's hand is in all of this. Here this picture leaves us with this feeling that Hezekiah lived a great life, but he's human. That's what I get out of it. He's human. He had frailties just like all of us did. And if there's anything that this lesson teaches us, I think, was he repented. You know, it says he repented. We have that. Some of the others, like Asa, he just lived good, but we don't know exactly how it ended, but we know how his ended. It says he repented. We have that. Have repentance. And I think that in itself is what kind of raised him up in my opinion. Because we have the other kings. We know David did good, and we know David most likely repented. But I don't ever know that Solomon was repentant. We don't really have a lot of indication. Because, the last we really hear about him is he's out with these strange women. He's married or concubines, worshiping their gods. And that's kind of the way the story ends on Solomon. David, we know he turned his heart back. It specifically tells us about David. And it specifically tells us that Hezekiah repented. And I think that, he lived a good life. God promised him that all of this bad stuff wouldn't happen during his life. But he was foretold now, did it dwell on his mind that he had caused it? No, I don't think it did. Because I think he knows if the people had changed and hadn't, even after his reign revert back, I think God would have saved them again. Because he keeps giving them. How many chances has he given the children of Israel already? Hundreds. I mean, it's like I've said many times, teaching before. All of the things we see in the Old Testament and what he did for the Jewish people, it just seems hard that how come they kept running off the road and getting in the ditch all the time and had to get pulled back up on the road by a prophet, by a king, a judge, because a judge was raised up to get them out of trouble. It was always something like that. And you would think that they would learn. But then I look, this country is 250 years old. You would think we would learn. We're doing the same thing, are we not? Just different ways, David. They had to make the move. That's just like he was able to do whatever Hezekiah wanted done as long as he was on his knees, repentant, and worshiped. He got it done. He did what he had to do. God is willing to help after we make the step. That's what I've told people before. He'll make his step, but you got to make yours first. And that goes, he's willing to accept us as sinners if we'll just meet the terms. Yes, Sarah.
Well, what strikes me is in verse 26, Hezekiah set the example for the people, and they also humbled their heart.
Yeah, that was the leader he was. Everybody could see he lived the life. And that's the reason I hold him in such high regards, because yes, there was some pride maybe here, but I don't see the pride that you see so much. Yes, he was probably proud of what he had accomplished, and God had blessed him, and he'd given God the credit. But yet, maybe that was a little bit prideful, showing the stuff to the Babylonians. Maybe he didn't thank God enough for giving him 15 more years, or But do you see any just, let's say, just out there just blatant things? No, I don't see that. No, he should have, though. So they could take all the doubt away.
And that's basically what Sarah said. Basically what I was going to say. He was a great leader of the people and really kind of brought them also back to God. And he had them praying. He prayed, he had them praying. And, it says of him in 2 Kings 18:15, after him, no one was like him among all the kings of Judah.
Yeah.
Back to an early point that you made. And, again, I'm right with you, as I said to begin with, about this book. But, it's, this guy says here, in an application here, I said a moment about, I modified his sentence here. He says, but Scripture seems to indicate otherwise. This is we must be careful not to make a similar mistake. And I modified that sentence to say we must be careful not to draw unwarranted conclusions.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what he did.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I mean, I just, when I mean, you read this and you almost think, boy, Hezekiah was a dud when you read this book. But, I mean, this guy was an upright guy, man. I'm saying he's battling for the number one position of good king of Israel, you know, ever. And our book lesson throws rocks at him, but he was a really good guy. And only mentions that. And look at what an upbringing the guy must have had. I mean, his dad is a nut, and his mother, Abijah, she's the daughter of Zechariah, but not to be the same Zechariah, because this, you know, obviously. So the guy, we don't know how in the world he had got implanted in his mind to do these good works. I mean, it didn't come from his dad's examples. And it's a guy that just set out to reform from the first day. But it's been a good lesson. It was a good lesson. I mean, you have to, if you have time, you want to put it together, just take all three, 2 Kings 18, 2 Chronicles 29-30, and Isaiah, I think, 36-39. And read all of those chapters, and then you got the whole story of who Hezekiah really, really was. It did. It wasn't even, you know, may have been an orange. I mean, it was so much different.
You know, it was true with a lot of these kings. I mean, they would you'd have a good king, and then his son would lead them.
Yeah, and that's what it is. It just seemed like there was no continuity of good guy after good guy after good guy. Because, you know, you'll have one, then we'll skip 2 or 3 that was really went down the wrong road, and then we'll get back on the good one again, and then we'll have 2 or 3 that went down the bad road. And that was the whole history of the Israeli, or the Jewish people, Israel, children of Israel, from the very first day. You know, they were always going up and down this roller coaster. But I appreciate your attention, and we'll be worship service in just a few minutes. And we got this visiting speaker today, and I know he's got us ready.
Next Sunday would have been Mark would have been teaching.
Yep.
Would have been Mark Clark. He left us untimely way.
He sure did.
Bill would be teaching.
Bill's on teach next week. Okay. Okay. And I've got lesson 13.